What is up guys, Andy Forest Runner here, and today we're going to be talking about how you guys can get the most out of your marathon training in 2020. So as we approach a rapid end to 2019, it's got me thinking over the last 4 weeks whilst I've been base building, and especially over the last few days where I've had some time to sit down and switch off from running, what's gone right and what's gone wrong in my marathon training blocks over the years, in particular this year. And so today I want to pick out those good bits and share them with you, some hints and tips that might help you, as I said, maximise your training for your upcoming 2020 marathon. Now, two things. Number one, I'm not a coach, I'm a 2:59 marathoner. If you want hard, nailed down scientific facts, there are plenty of amazing resources out there. These are simply hints and tips. As I said, I'm not a coach. Just want to share my positive thoughts with you. And secondly, this video will not contain the obvious things. There's one statement I want to say right now to get out of the way. I don't like starting my how-to videos with a consistency is key, because it's too obvious and it wastes a point. It does waste a point. So I'm going to say it now: consistency and lifetime mileage is the best thing for your marathon PB. The more marathons you run, the more mileage you run, the better you become at that distance. That is pretty much a simple fact. So I'm not going to say that as one of the points, I'm just getting that out there now. If you're someone that's consistent with your running, then hopefully this video will be for you. If you're not, and you pick up running and put it down, then potentially it's not. Either way, let's dive in to the points. If you're excited for today's video, guys, make sure you give it a like, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel for weekly running content, and without further ado, let's get in to number one. Okay, so the first three tips are going to be pre-marathon training, and if you're in a similar situation to what I am in terms of a family situation, you will hopefully understand the importance of these. If you're not, then please bear with me until point number 4. But the first tip that I'm going to give you guys is to sit down and have a chat with your loved ones, have a chat with your family, and tell them what you are about to embark on. Marathon training takes up a lot of our time, it takes up a lot of our energy, it takes up a lot of our thought process. And whether we like to think it or not, or joke about it, which we do joke about it a lot, marathon training is the real deal. Whatever level you are running at, it doesn't matter if you're running an 8-hour marathon or if you're running a 2-hour marathon, world record pace, either way, it takes up a lot of our time. It's really important to sit down and have a chat with those around you and let them know what's going on. You do not want any resentment building up. Trust me, I've been there, I've done it. It is not a pleasant experience. And I can tell you from positive experience that this recent marathon training block I did at Newport, I sat down with my wife and my family and I told them what I was about to embark on, and I had their full support and backing, regardless of the fact that my wife is not a runner. It was extremely appreciative from my perspective that I had her support. She did extra childcare. She knew what was coming. She wasn't surprised when I was going to be out for 2.5, maybe even 3 hours on the weekend. And it just didn't come into a shock with her. And that's such an important point. Marathon training can be a real stumbling block in relationships sometimes. So that's tip number 1. And then from there, it's all about tip number 2, choosing the right plan for you. My top tip on this aspect about choosing a plan is not choosing a plan that you're going to adapt your life around, but choose a plan that you can adapt into your life. At the end of the day, we are not professional marathon runners, we are not paid athletes, therefore it's really important that, again, following on from point number 1, all of this fits in as best as possible to our current daily life. I always find a plan that works with the current mileage that I am running or able to run. I do not ever choose anything that's looking for me to push 10 to 15 miles above. Yes, I might end up running 5 to 10 miles, well, 5 miles on average a week more during marathon training. For example, last year I was running 40 to 45 miles a week, And then that followed through into the beginning of this year. When I embarked on Newport Marathon training, I was hitting around 50, and that was manageable. It was doable. My wife knew about it, and it was all good. I certainly did not embark on anything that was going to take me into the 60s, 70s, and even 80s. It's just unfathomable for my fitness level, and it just would not work for my life. So that's tip number 2. Find a plan that's going to work in with your life. And the third tip before you start your marathon training is then, of course, see if you can find some running company, a running buddy, whether it's for all of your runs or whether it's just for that one run a week that you are going to dread. At the end of the day, I got through multiple training plans with friends. It makes life so much easier, and I can assure you, when you step out there on those dark, cold, wet, rainy winter nights and you have 4 by 15 minutes at marathon pace to do, there is nothing worse than knowing you are doing it all on your own. It doesn't actually matter if you're running at the same pace, but even if you're doing looped circuits, even if you're going back past someone that you can high five because you're quicker or slower than them, just having the company out there gives you that extra motivation, A, to get out the door, and B, to finish your workout. There have been countless times where I have finished a workout, but I have been in a mental position where I've just wanted to bail because there's no one there to push me along. It's been tough, it's been cold, and it's been horrible. So that's the third tip. Try and find some running company before you start your marathon training. Okay, so tips 4 through to 7 are going to be things that you guys will want to think about during your marathon training. And the fourth tip is going to be actually specifically about your training plan. Once you've chosen it, tip number 4 is don't be afraid to deviate away from the plan if you need to. Don't forget, training plans are written to give us a guidance, to keep us on track, and to get that progression that we need to land us on marathon race day in the best shape possible. But, of course, those plans are written for a perfect world. We all have family things that crop up, we have work, long days, we have emergencies, whatever it might be, that mean that for whatever reason we can't run that day, or we're actually just too tired. In particular for me, back in April again, there were lots of times when I was switching sessions around, moving runs here and there. I'd say about 75 to 80% of my planned weeks stayed the same, but there were about 20% of the weeks where at least one day shuffled around or swapped with another run, or I even missed a run. And at the end of the day, again, it's not a massive issue. As I said, we are all human, we all have things to deal with. We are not dedicating our lives to running. Plans are there to give us that progression all the way up and then that nice taper back down. And yes, we want to follow them as best as we can, but as I said, don't be afraid to deviate. Things crop up, and it really doesn't matter if you miss a session or even if you miss a run. And the fifth tip I'm going to give you is to make sure you incorporate some strength and conditioning into your plan. Strength and conditioning is something I've been doing since the beginning of last year or earlier last year, so well over a year now. In fact, nearly 2 years I've been doing it. And it's the best thing that I have ever incorporated. I had an extra hour that I could fit some extra exercise into my week that cropped up back beginning of last year, and instead of just running more, I decided to sign up to the gym and get some strength and conditioning done. For me in particular, it's my back that I need to strengthen, and honestly, it's the best decision that I ever made. Race performances got better and better and better. I got quicker without running more. Now yes, you need to run more to get quicker naturally, but we all have imbalances, we all have imperfections in our running form, and just by fixing those and spending some time, it's just going to make us a stronger and better runner throughout. This year for me in particular, touch wood, and I'm touching wood here, I've had a very injury-free year. I've had a few niggles here and there, but on the whole I've been able to run consistently and get over that 2,000 mile mark, which I'm extremely grateful for. So make sure you incorporate some strength and conditioning along with stretching and foam rolling, in particular after each of those hard sessions. Tip number 6 is all about the long run workout. You will hear me bang on about the long run workout here on this channel because I absolutely love the long run workout. It is the best form of run and workout, in my opinion, that you can do. And that's probably because I live in such a beautiful place that means that my long runs are really, really enjoyable. So for me, the long run workout is something I've been doing for, wow, since I can remember. Literally after my first year of running, when I discovered them, I started incorporating them in the second year, and I have never looked back. And I've pretty much incorporated a long run workout on most of my training plans, even the 10k training that I was doing. They're just so pivotal to building that speed endurance, which is exactly what you need during the marathon. At the end of the day, for me, I came off the back of a summer of 10k and half marathon training. Combined, it was about 15 weeks in total. Then I had 4 weeks to tune up for Abingdon Marathon. And I decided in the 2 weeks that I had to really train hard before then a 2 week taper. I was going to focus on the long run workout. So I made sure that I just did the one session in that week and then focused solely on getting a 23 mile and an 18 mile long run workout done and dusted. And that just gave me a great indication as to what shape I was in. I wanted to go out easier anyway, and it just paid dividends, getting that PB and finally that sub 3 hours. So for me personally, the long run workout is something that, regardless of what your plan says, you should be incorporating into your long run. Tip number 7 is all about booking in those tune-up races. For me, tune-up races are just the best thing that you can do. We can train to our heart's content, but at the end of the day, we need to see how that training relates to race performances. I always find that I either train faster or slower than what I'm going to run in the race. It just depends on the type of training that I'm doing. And so it's great to go out there and work out what my racing speed actually is. I've been racing now long enough to kind of understand what my 10k, if I ran a 10k in this time, then roughly give or take 10 seconds a mile, what I could run my half marathon in and then my marathon. And it's just a great way to A, build up confidence, B, see how that training is paying off, and C, breaking the monotony of that constant training. So make sure you get some of those tune-up races booked in. And these final 3 tips are going to be all about practicing leading up to race day. Not only are you going to be using those tune-up races to practice, but we're going to use other workouts in your training plan to practice as well. So my tip number 8 is to practice fueling. If you're anything like me, I have a bit of a dodgy stomach. And for me, not all fueling works, whether it's certain gels or water, fluid, whatever it is, can sometimes set my stomach off. So it's really important that I use some of those long run workouts that I was talking about to simulate my marathon fueling. And I will try and take on fuel during, whether it's intervals or during a period of time where I'm running as close to, maybe quicker or a bit slower than marathon pace, not during the easy plodding, because that doesn't have the same effect on your stomach. You just want to try and take in the fuel when you are running as close to race pace as possible and get your stomach used to taking on that fuel and seeing how it reacts. If it doesn't work, then great, you've got time to prepare and change for something else. I know a lot of races that we all sign up for have sponsored partners of fueling there, and it's great if you can get that type of fuel and practice with it, because that means you don't have to carry around a big belt with gels bouncing around. That's super. But then also on the flip side, if you know that gel or that fuel doesn't work for you, you've got time to practice with your fueling. Not only that, but tip number 9 is going to be all about making sure you know what your shoe choice is. This is something that was really not worrying me for a long time until I got to a marathon a couple of years ago, and I was worrying senseless for 2 days leading up to the marathon, not knowing which pair of shoes I should be running in. And actually I completely nailed that this year by actually deciding back in January, when I started my marathon training for April, what shoes I was going to be running in, and I solely ran in those shoes. I would not recommend doing that now. I would be mixing it up, but certainly at least your long run workouts and a lot of your workouts, I'd be utilising your race day shoes, maybe not putting too many miles in them. I ended up getting a fresh pair of my Nike Zoom Fly Originals for the marathon because I knew they worked so well, and that was great. They had about 100 miles in them when I got to race day. But I literally burnt through over 500 miles in my original pair, which was great because they worked well. I knew they were comfy and I knew what was going to work for race day. As I said, it's great to actually mix in other shoes now, like I am on my weekly basis, but certainly using those race day shoes where it counts on those workouts that matter. And finally, the last thing I want to suggest is pick out some workouts that are going to allow you to simulate race day. A lot of marathon training has tempo runs in them, and it's actually can get, depending on how advanced you are in your marathon training, can get up to like 12, 13, 14, 15 mile tempo runs, depending how quick you run them in. And those days are great for testing out your race day strategy. What do I mean by this? You probably hear it a lot, and a lot of people give this advice, and it is one of the best pieces of advice you'll ever hear, but that is getting up at race time, eating your race breakfast, preparing like you would for a race, and then going out and doing a workout and making sure it all works. This is going to build your mental confidence massively. It's just going to allow you to feel settled with the fact that come race day, you know what you're doing. There's no surprises that are about to creep out of the woodwork. You know your stomach will handle it. You'll know how everything works. And it's just going to put your mind at ease and allow you to train comfortably leading up to the marathon. So that's it, guys. Those are my top 10 tips to hopefully give you a bit more positivity leading into your spring, autumn, whenever it is your marathon training in 2020 and beyond. Hopefully they'll help. I'd love to hear your tips in the comments below though. Of course, make sure you leave a comment and let me know the things that you like to do leading up to your marathon training. So that's it from me today, guys. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure you give it a like, share with your friends, subscribe to the channel for weekly running content, and as always, I'll see you on the next one. Until then.